Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is Sunday, September the 14th, 3:30 Rio de Janeiro time, and we are starting one more live stream. As usual, you have a priority to suggest topics of your interest to be discussed here live by me and with suggestions and participations of our audience. Let's get started. So let's take a look at what's going on in Brazil in terms of news. And here we have Estadão. Estadão is a traditional Brazilian newspaper, and the main headline is unusual. It's unusual because it's not talking about the United States, it's talking about Argentina. Argentina, as you may know, is a neighbor country to Brazil. And here the news is the identification of a body for a piano player. The piano player was a Brazilian who was killed by the Argentinian dictatorship 50 years ago. And the family was trying to recover his body. They couldn't locate it. But exactly this week, like the Argentinian government was able to identify the body of this piano player, and that's the main headline today in Estadão. Another very interesting topic here is about gym, and I would like to ask you who among of you are, gym goers, like who likes to go to the gym often. Like I like to go to the gym. I typically go to the gym from Mondays to Friday, typically the first thing in the morning. I do love going to the gym. That's a personal time for me. And something interesting to share is that in Brazil, gyms, like they are going to be either very expensive or very overcrowded, right? Like typically they are going to be in one of those categories, and at least like in major cities, right? For smaller cities, you may find something better balanced, but for large cities, unfortunately, you're going to pick one or the other. And here, the news is talking about a special type of gym, like the super high-end, the super high-end gyms in São Paulo. And if I tell you the prices, tell me if you believe how much we're talking about. So here we're talking about the monthly fee, and this is going to range between approximately like 250 US dollars, like the lower range, and the upper range, it could be something like 1,750 US dollars. I'm talking about US dollars. I'm not talking about Brazilian reais a month. So almost $2,000 just for you to go to the gym. And of course, this is something outside the curve. It's not like for the vast majority. I would say this is like for the 0.1% of the Brazilian population and potentially foreign citizens as well. But it does show like that in São Paulo, you're going to find some very exclusive gyms. Okay, and just as a personal reference, right? The gym that I go to in Rio de Janeiro, it costs approximately 50 US dollars a month. Okay, the name is Smart Fit, and it's a kind of popular gym chain in Rio de Janeiro and other major cities. And they have, typically up-to-date machinery. The problem is that, like, the locations, they are typically overcrowded. So you do need to go outside of, the peak time. Like, peak time is traditionally between 7 to 9 a.m. So if you go really early, like 5 a.m., 5:30 or 6 a.m., or if you are a person, who can go like in the afternoon or in late mornings, then of course you're gonna have a much better time at the gym. But in Rio de Janeiro, if you go to a regular good gym like Smart Fit during peak time, it's kind of overwhelming, to say the least, right? But here we go, like those crazily expensive gyms in Sao Paulo. They do show that there is a specific segment of the Brazilian population with a huge purchasing power, as you can see. All right. Something else, of course, always something about, President Trump and the United States. And here the news is New York Times gave an opportunity to President Lula, to the Brazilian president, to address President Trump. And basically the message here is Brazil remains open to dialogue, but is not going to accept any interference when it comes, like to the sovereignty, right? Of course, that's like the Brazilian way of framing the disputes between the Supreme Court and President Bolsonaro. Last week, President Bolsonaro was found guilty, and they have devised, if I'm not mistaken, something like 25 years of prison time to President Bolsonaro. At least as of today, President Bolsonaro is still under house arrest. He was actually in a hospital. He was dealing with some, healthy issues, but he is returning home. And now the question is if the Supreme Court, if they are going to try to take President Bolsonaro to a typical prison, or if they are going to keep President Bolsonaro under house arrest. But here is like President Lula now have a space in New York Times to share, like his thoughts on U.S. policy, and more specifically on President Trump's takes on Brazilian politics, because President Trump is saying, yes, we are keeping an eye at, Brazil. We think that, like the Supreme Court is becoming like a tyrannic kind of, entity. And, the Brazilian Supreme Court has been hammering against, like the U.S. social media channels, and curbing the channels and fining the channels one time after another, right? So there is an ongoing dispute, as most of you probably know, between the United States and Brazil. And here is this piece of news that you can read about. Remember, you can always read like the Brazilian newspapers. You just need to use Chrome, okay? Like if you have a Chrome installed, you just need to right-click, and through the right-click, you can machine translate to English, and then you can read pretty much everything going on in Brazil, all right? So if you're just practicing Portuguese at this stage, no worries, you can read the news in English. And there you go. Let's take a look at our audience. Let's see if we have any topics of interest. Marisa Navas, boa tarde, Dr. Luciano. Amamos suas lives. Obrigado, Marisa. Obrigado, Ricardo. Thank you so much for following us and for your support. Alexander Sheffer. I went to Bodytech in Rio, and yes, was expensive and crowded. I stayed in the treadmill area. Look, Alexander, really nice sharing. So, Bodytech is another, let's say, is a competitor, right, of Smart Fit, and typically Bodytech is going to be a notch above Smart Fit. Let me ask you, Alexander, do you recall how much you were paying for the monthly plan? Like, I mean, they also have, right, Alexander? I'm not sure if you remember, but in Rio, typically they are going to have like two major offers. One offer is going to be like if you commit to a full year, which is, similar to what you see in the United States. If you commit to a full year, they do give you like a nice discount, a substantial discount. If you don't want to commit to a full year, then you're going to pay a higher monthly fee. okay? And the one I told you, like the $50 for Smart Fit, is typically the non-commitment, right? The non-commitment. I'm always traveling, moving around. So I would rather have the flexibility of going to different places, different gyms, right? So that's my choice. But if you are pretty settled in Rio de Janeiro or São Paulo or any other Brazilian city, if you commit to a full year, then you get like substantial discounts. But nice sharing, Alexander. Bodytech is a major a gym chain in Rio de Janeiro. You're gonna find a bunch of locations in the so-called Zona Sul do Rio de Janeiro, right? Or the South Zone of Rio de Janeiro. I don't know. When I translate like South Zone, it sounds a little bit weird. It's just because, right, like a Zona Sul is almost like a name. It's not that we are describing the specific zone or area of Rio de Janeiro. We are actually calling a location, right? Zona Sul is just like a name. So, yes, in Zona Sul, Bodytech and Smart Fit, they dominate the gym scene in Rio de Janeiro. Now, Alexander, if you know more than I know about gyms, I would ask you, have you ever saw those crazy prices in Rio de Janeiro? Because I never saw anything like that, right? Like, I mean, something is starting at $250 a month to almost $2,000 a month. Like, I mean, now I got very curious about those gyms in São Paulo. I'm going to see if I can go to one of these locations, maybe record a video to share with you guys and see what's going on over there. Ronnie Dio, good to see you, Ronnie. Most Americans can't afford that gym membership. Yes, I mean, that's crazily expensive. I can tell you, I cannot afford for sure, right? Like, I mean, my my sweet spot is going to be like $50 a month. And that's something amenable to my budget. All right, Ronnie. Yeah, true. Ronnie, remind me, Ronnie, are you currently in Brazil? Are you currently in the US? Let me know if you ever had any experiences with Brazilian gyms before. Matthew Davis, good to see you, Matthew. Good day, Matthew. Good to see you. And we are just getting started. Let me know if you have any topics of your interest to be discussed. Let's take a look at our partner, Remax Ed. As you may know, we have now a partnership with Remax. Nomad States is one of the Remax agencies in Rio de Janeiro. And the idea behind this specific agency is that they are trying to work with the same standards that we work here at the firm. Naturally, they focus on real estate, we focus on legal services, but there is a somewhat overlap between their activities and our activities. So whenever someone from our audience or someone from our clientele, when they go to Remax Nomad States, Remax Nomad States knows the type of properties they should be showing. No gray area properties, no risky properties, no monkey business, right? That's the whole idea behind our work with the, expat community, right? Like, I mean, to guide you guys through the safe path. And that's the same thing we're trying to do with Remax Nomad States. There you go. You have a phone number, right? Like if you want to just take a screenshot, you have the WhatsApp number for Remax Nomad States. You have their email address, and you can basically just contact them, tell them, like you're coming from our live stream, and tell them what you're looking for. I'm sure they would be very excited to get you a short list of properties if you are in the market for some. All right. So, all right, going back to our audience, Matt. Hello, Luciano. My spouse, Adrian, is a Brazilian citizen. We spoke about the marriage visa during our conversation. I also qualify for the retirement visa. Would the retirement visa be easier for me? So, Matt, the highest end type of immigration benefit you can get is going to be through marriage, right? So nowadays, even though the retirement visa is also a very high end immigration path to Brazil, nothing beats the marriage route. Okay, so if you are married to a Brazilian, that would be the natural pathway to pursue. All right. The only downside that could come to my mind in terms of the marriage route is that you're gonna be required an FBI background check with an apostille from Washington D.C. If you're doing the retirement, they typically accept something at the state level, right? So let's say if you live in Massachusetts or New York, right? Let's talk about New York. In New York, you can apply and get a background check online through the New York court system. You pay something like, I don't recall if it is $93, $95. You pay this fee, and in a couple of days, you have a state level background check good to go. And then you just need to get an apostille on that background check, and that would be enough for you to apply, of course, among several other documents to the Brazil retirement visa. Now, if you are applying for the permanent residency through marriage, then typically the Brazilian Federal Police is going to require the FBI background check. The problem with the FBI background check is that after it is issued, you still need to get an apostille, and the apostille process in Washington, D.C. may take up to 6 weeks. And to make things more challenging, once you get the apostilled document, it's already, halfway expired because Brazil wants a background check not older than 90 days. But if you gotta wait 6 weeks just for the apostille and then still get this document physically in Brazil, when you get it, you kind of, running out of time. So that's the challenge with the marriage route. But that's why we are here to assist you with that. We try to keep things, working in parallel in order for you to be able to apply for the permanent residency through marriage. Another distinction, Matt, is that for the marriage-based permanent residency, you must be residing in Brazil. So you cannot start this process, at least from a filing perspective, while you're still living in the United States. You must be present in Brazil, residing, and with a bunch of requirements that are really going to show that you are already a resident in Brazil. Not so much for the Brazil retirement visa. For the Brazil retirement visa, you can actually, start no problem from the United States. You don't need to be living in Brazil to start your journey as a Brazil retirement visa holder. All right, Matt. All right, keep the participation coming. Alexander, it is a discounted rate from a friend, so it was only 200 reais for the month. Yes, it sounds like a very good deal, Alexander, about 37, 38 US dollars. I think it was 700 without the discount, but you're right. I never saw those São Paulo prices in Rio. There you go. 700 is already a more substantial amount of money, right? 700 reais, we're talking about maybe 120, 130 US dollars a month, right? That's in Rio de Janeiro, Zona Sul. Right, Alexander? You never mentioned Zona Sul, but I'm going to guess we're talking about Zona Sul over here. Matt Gaines, I recently retired and will easily meet the passive income requirement. Good for you, Matt. So you have two different routes. You can pick the one that works best for you right now. If you're still living in the United States, and if you want something, less demanding in terms of coordination. The Brazil retirement visa may make sense. Now, the best route, the most solid one, the one that you're going to get, the permanent residency right off the bat is going to be the marriage route, all right? Ari, boa tarde, Luciano. Hello from beautiful Trancoso in Bahia. Oh, Ari, so good to see you. All right, good to see you around. Good to know you are enjoying Trancoso in Bahia. It has been a while. It has been a minute since I went to Trancoso in Bahia. That was probably, 25 years ago. And I used to go to Trancoso, not only Trancoso, right? Like Trancoso, for those of you who don't know the area, right? Like in the state of Bahia. Bahia is a state in the northeast of Brazil. It is pretty famous among tourists, and there are some amazing destinations over there. A major destination is gonna be Trancoso, right? And Trancoso, it also reminds me of Porto Seguro and other areas, right? But Trancoso and Porto Seguro, they are two major destinations in Bahia, Ari. Let us know, Ari, how do you like over there? How is the weather? How's the water? Like, are you really staying in Trancoso? Many people, they don't actually stay in Trancoso, right? They go to Trancoso to stay for a couple of days, but they typically stay elsewhere, right? Trancoso is not as well developed as other areas of Bahia, even though it's an amazing area. Okay, Ari, Matt Gaines, thank you. That answers my question. You're welcome, Matt. Ronnie Dio, I'm currently in the US, but had visited a few gyms in Fortaleza in the past. A few of the gyms were decent for a good price, and one nice gym with a pool was less than $50 a month. Yes, Ronnie. So it is in the ballpark range that I told you guys, and Fortaleza, right? Is not as expensive for sure as Rio or São Paulo. So I'm glad to know that $50 gets you a good gym in Fortaleza, right? Something else, whenever you travel to Brazil, like if you are staying in a hotel, they are typically furnished with small gyms, but you probably know how it goes. It's probably just like in the US, right? Not much of a gym, just a few weights, a few machines. But you know what? If you're traveling, if you're not going to stay for long, maybe that small gym at the hotel or at the Airbnb building, it could work to some extent. All right, nice sharing, Ronnie. Sharing Mitchell, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Sharing. Break it down. Good to see you again, Break it down. Hi, how much will it cost for a consultation to speak about buying a condominium as a British foreign investor for an off-plan property that will be completed in 2029? Breakdown, our consultation is $150 US. I'm gonna share the link here. You can come online and just schedule the consultation. So this is gonna be a consultation with a senior attorney, right? If you are more concerned with the legal aspects of your acquisition, you're gonna want to schedule a consultation with a senior attorney, right? This said, if you want to discuss about realtor stuff, then you don't need a consultation with a senior attorney. You can actually schedule a consultation with a bilingual realtor, okay, that is typically provided by the Nomad States agency in Rio de Janeiro, and they are gonna, provide you with tips on the purchasing process. They could get you listings, and then in this case, the consultation is just $50 US. All right, breakdown. Hope to see you soon. Ari, I know tax advice is not part of your services, but I guess there are some basic questions answers that apply to all your foreign clients with Brazilian residency. Ari, once a foreigner has the CRNM card, residency by investment route, are they automatically liable for taxes even if they never stay in Brazil longer than the 182 days per year? Ari, that's true. Like typically, we think, taxation is not only something very important, but is typically something very particular to each one's specifics. And I can explain, or I can give you like a couple of examples, right? Like there are two main triggers for tax residency to occur. And when you secure the real estate investor visa, at least during the first 4 years, they are temporary, right? So being temporary, they are not going to trigger automatically the tax residency, okay? But at the same time, they don't shield you from tax residency as well. So knowing that you are under the real estate investor visa for the first 4 years, I can tell you that this by itself is not going to get you as a tax resident, right? And then you're providing another piece of information. Well, and by the way, I'm also not spending the 183/184 days in the country in any given 365 days. In this case, I can also tell you, you are not triggering the second way of becoming a permanent or a tax resident, right? Now, this said, these are just like the two major tax triggers. So there are other triggers that you could consider, that could happen, that you could discuss with a tax specialist. So what I cannot tell you that you're not a tax resident. What I can tell you is that if you are under those two triggers alone, it means you are not a tax resident. But I don't know if there are any other triggers that could be qualifying you as a tax resident. And therefore, our typical recommendation is for you to actually, secure a review by a tax expert. It could be a tax CPA or it could be a tax attorney in Brazil, and then they are going to spend like a lot of time to go over your specifics and not only interpret your tax position in Brazil, but also to advise you on how to optimize your tax journey in Brazil. Ari, nice sharing. Breakdown. Ok, valeu. De nada, breakdown. Keep the questions coming. Christopher, boa tarde, Dr. Luciano. Boa tarde, Christopher. Do you think Portugal is going to raise the citizenship residency requirement to 10 years? Christopher, I don't think so. I think it's going to be something between 7 to 8 years, all right? And it hasn't, the Congress has not reached an agreement. Just like anywhere else, there is a dispute between both sides of the aisle, and guess what the positions are, right? Like very easy for you to guess, right? So the left side of the aisle, they want to keep the 5 years or maybe even reduce, and the right side of the aisle, they want to increase from the 5 to 10 years, right? So the compromise here is that instead of increasing from 5 to 10, I think the increase is going to be something like 5 to 7. That would be my guess. 5 to 7, not 5 to 8. I think 5 to 7 will be the point of compromise. Nice question, Christopher. Ronnie, I believe after much thought, I will pursue the digital nomad visa. Can you share any info about the client who drove to Brazil and then applied for visa? I believe I may drive. Yes. So this gentleman, he is nowadays he's living in Florianopolis, and he's very happy, right? Like, I mean, he found like a romantic partner, and he is considering settling down for good in Florianopolis. He basically just loves Florianopolis. He came driving all the way from the United States to the south of Brazil, right? So he not only drove from the United States, but he actually drove through South America, like through the neighboring countries. And then he entered Brazil from the extreme south of the country. I think it was like a 3-month journey. And before any of you pull the gun, I know that's impossible to just drive, all the way to Brazil, right? Like there are going to be some instances in which you're going to need some type of, additional transportation. I would guess like a ferry boat, to move your car from one location to the other, to another. But yes, I mean, we have had actually multiple clients who came driving from the United States to Brazil. Believe it or not, it is like a months long journey. And typically, it's not going to be, naturally, right? Like, I'm sure you know about that. They're not driving to save money because they're actually spending many, many more times by coming, driving. But I think it's a very unique experience because whenever you're driving, you're going to, perceive this journey in a very different manner, right? Like if you just take an airplane, it's almost like you teletransport yourself from A to B. When you're driving, is a very different story because you are like, you're going to stop, for lunch, you're going to stop for a dinner, you're going to stop for some coffee, you're going to stop for restroom, right? And every single stop is going to represent an opportunity for you to experience how the locals travel. You're going to be experiencing interactions with the locals through FAO, all of those countries which you're going to be crossing during your journey, all right? So very interesting. I think it's like a type of a bucket list type of thing, right, Ronnie? Because I wish I would have an opportunity to do something like this, like to travel, from the United States or to Brazil, in a 3-month long journey. That would be so crazily exciting. Alexander, I am an American, European Union citizen, while my wife is Brazilian. We are considering buying an apartment in Rio. I haven't considered becoming a citizen, but would there be advantages to both of us being citizens? Alexander, nowadays, people who are pursuing, Brazilian citizenship, they are looking for a Plan B type of thing, right? Like, I mean, nowadays, a lot of tensions are rising on the global stage. So there is always like, this tiny chance of a global war, maybe nowadays, higher than what we would like it to be. So when people are pursuing a passport in Brazil, typically they want to have a fallback plan, right? Like, so if you are in Europe and a war, starts in Europe, in your case, right, like I understand you have like a U.S. passport, so you could travel to the U.S., but naturally in a global war, the U.S. would be a major participant, right? So Brazil is recognized as a kind of a neutral country when it comes to wars. Like, I mean, we have a very pacifist tradition in terms of not participating in wars, avoiding wars. Our army, our navy, they are not well developed. So people look at Brazil and think that Brazil would be, a safe harbor if there was like a third world war. Okay, like again, in your case, it looks like you already have like two possibilities: United States and Europe. But the advantage of having the Brazilian citizenship would be, for you to have a better access to the country, right? Like, because then once you become a citizen, this is going to be something that nobody is going to take away from you. Another advantage is to have access to rural properties in Brazil. So in your case, right, like you have a Brazilian spouse, but even though you have a Brazilian spouse, even if you become a permanent resident in Brazil, you are still going to be limited in terms of which properties you're going to be able to buy when it comes to rural real estate, right? I'm not talking about urban, right? Like, so if you're going to buy something in Rio de Janeiro, you can buy 10 apartments in Zona Sul, you can buy, 50 properties throughout Brazil. Nobody is concerned. Now, when it comes to urban properties, then it's a very different ballgame, right? Brazil is concerned with people buying land, buying land in the Amazon or elsewhere. So until you become a Brazilian citizen, you're always going to be facing restrictions when it comes to rural land, okay? Another restriction, which is very rare to impact our clients, maybe, just because of their nature, is that, certain positions or certain participations in companies, they are going to be limited to non-Brazilians, right? Typically those related, for instance, to news, right? So if there is a newspaper, guess what? If you are a foreign citizen, you shouldn't have any meaningful role in a news organization, right? Of course, you could be a reporter. We're talking in terms of meaningful, we're talking more about like an officer position, like the C-suite type of thing, okay? So this is another type of restriction to non-citizens. And there are probably another, 8, right? Like I remember we had like about 8 types of restrictions to non-foreign citizens in Brazil. And if you want to overcome, if you want to, have a full access to everything, Alexander, that's when you pursue the citizenship. All right. I hope that was helpful. Ari, thanks, Luciano. Also, the very first time tax is triggered. How have your clients been contacted by email, letter, etc.? Are they initially presented a bill, a form to fill? Ari, so just like in most other countries, nobody is going to let you know that you have become a tax resident, right? Like it's your responsibility to come forward and tell the Brazilian government. And by the way, I've been here for this amount of, days, or, now I have secured, let's say after your 4 years of temporary residency under the real estate investor visa, once you renew as a permanent resident, it's your job to come forward and file your first tax return. All right. So there is no letter coming from anyone. You need to be, you need to be careful about those days and initiate the process on your own, Ari. I hope that makes sense. Jeff Bishop, does a digital nomad visa make you tax resident in Brazil? Does it depend on how many days you spent in Brazil or Mercosul? Jeff, digital nomad is not gonna make you a tax resident by itself, right? But typically, most of our clients who are applying for the digital nomad, they want to spend most of the year in Brazil, and therefore they actually end up becoming tax residents, right? The number of days, the reference number of days from the Brazilian Revenue Service is 183 days, meaning that if you stay 183, you are not a tax resident. From this trigger alone, there are other triggers, right? But we're just talking about this trigger. If you stay 184 days, yes, you are triggering the tax residency, right? So naturally, most of our clients, whenever they're pursuing a visa, they want to stay most of the year, and therefore, yes, they are going to become a tax resident. But just the digital nomad visa by itself, it does not make you a tax resident, all right? Another important point of concern is that we're not talking about calendar year. So I'm not talking about January the 1st to December the 31st. I'm talking about a moving bracket. So in this moving bracket, it is like the Brazilian Revenue Service is trying to catch you. So this moving bracket, as soon as it identifies a period of time superior to 180 days in any given 365 days, that's when it's going to catch you and make you a tax resident in Brazil. And by the way, again, I mean, I think, any of you with, an idea of spending a substantial amount of time in Brazil should have a consultation with a tax advisor, right? But what I can tell you is that, like tax residency in Brazil is probably a pain in the neck. I'm going to agree with that, but it's not the end of the world, right? There are dynamics behind the tax code, both in the United States and in Brazil, trying to minimize the total tax load and trying, right? Trying to avoid double taxation as well. So there you go. Instead of, maybe, precluding yourself from staying in Brazil for a longer period of time, maybe you should, first find out what's going to be your tax load so you can make an informed decision. All right, that's my tip for you guys on the tax front. Christopher, Dr. Oliveira, if I buy a condo in Rio, do I qualify for permanent residency in Brazil? Is that considered the golden visa? Christopher, yes. That's the so-called Brazil golden visa. Typically in our legislation, right, like in our regulations, there is no golden visa wording by itself, but we typically say golden visa just because this term is like more like of an international category, right, of visas for people who are investing in other countries. So yes, you could consider that as the Brazil golden visa. And for Rio de Janeiro nowadays, if you buy a property of at least 1 million reais, which is roughly, I would guess, like 170,000 US dollars approximately, you are entitled for the Brazil investor visa. So the Brazil investor visa, it gets you like 4 years of residency right off the bat, right? But because it's 4, it's not permanent, right? Like if it was permanent, you wouldn't be 4. So 4 years is still like a temporary residency, but before the 4 years expire, you're gonna renew this visa, and typically when you renew, you're gonna renew as a permanent residency, right? So first 4 years, they are not permanent, they are just temporary. But after those 4 years or shortly before the 4 years expire, you're going to renew your residency. And in this case, you can renew potentially as the permanent residency. All right, Christopher, there you go. But listen, condo in Rio, that's very common. I would say it's actually a substantial share of our real estate transactions here at the firm, right? And I would say, not surprisingly, guess where they are? In Zona Sul of Rio de Janeiro. All right, Pedro ADSW. Boa tarde, Pedro. Referencing Alexander's question, although a non-Brazilian citizen can't purchase rural land, but could his wife purchase rural land given she's a Brazilian citizen? Pedro, so nice follow-up question, all right? And the first answer is going to be that actually you can buy rural land, right? Like the idea is not that you cannot buy. You're going to face restrictions in the type of rural land that you can buy, right? So typically, if you're going to buy a small tract of land the government is gonna let you alone. Is gonna leave you alone. But if you're trying to buy something more meaningful, that's when the government is gonna stop you on your tracks. Okay, so that's an important perspective. Yes, you can buy rural land as long as the parcels are small, right? If they become big, they become more meaningful, then you cannot buy. Okay, so that's the first part of my answer to your question. The second one is, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not 99% sure. There is a specific law addressing acquisition of rural land by foreign citizens in Brazil. So the concern is so big that the legislators, they even created a law just to address purchase of rural land by foreign citizens. And in this law, I don't recall if they do spell it out or if it's just like an outcome of an interpretation, right? Because I don't have the law in front of me. I just have the main points from memory. But there is a dynamic that goes like this. Whenever you're buying something in Brazil, if your wife, if she's buying rural land, guess who's going to piggyback on her? You as the husband, right? So even though your wife is Brazilian, when she tries to buy the rural land, she's going to trigger ownership to you because you are the husband, right? And in Brazil, we don't have the same approach that you see in the United States, in which spouses can buy property on an individual basis. There is no such a concept in Brazil. In Brazil, when you buy property, if you're married, guess what? Both spouses are going to show up in the final deed, in the final title, right? So when you try that path, and that's a very common question, very interesting question, if your spouse, who's 100% Brazilian, tries to buy rural land, when they see that she's married to you, guess what they're going to say? Well, no, you cannot buy. I'm not going to let you buy, because if you buy, your husband is going to piggyback as an owner, and then this is going to be going against the law addressing acquisition of rural land by foreign citizens. All right. So short answer is that your wife, she's not going to be able to buy, most probably, right? Like we have over 6,000 different municipalities in Brazil. Some of them, they are very tiny. Many of them have like registries that are not exactly, how can I say in a way that's not detrimental, right? Like, I mean, in some areas, like the registries, they are not really that experienced, or sometimes they don't have like an officer who's like, really, who has a good understanding of the dynamics involving foreign citizens. So every now and then we do get notice of someone buying land that they shouldn't have been able to bought, and they bought it anyhow, right? But this is typically, like in more remote areas of Brazil, not like in São Paulo, state of Rio de Janeiro, south of Brazil, right? This is going to be like in the more remote areas of the country. Now, in São Paulo, I never saw anyone buying land as a foreign citizen, right? Like exceeding the given limitation for that specific municipality, right? That's another interesting aspect. In Brazil, we have over 6,000 municipalities. And believe it or not, there is a type of a list of the size of the land that you can buy for every single municipality. So we're talking about over 6,000 different sizes of land that you can buy. And the concept here is that, like in some more crowded areas, they want you to be able to buy smaller tracts of land, and in places in which there are, many vacant plots of land, then maybe they are going to allow you to buy somewhat, right? Not that meaningful, but a somewhat larger property in that area. All right, Pedro, nice follow-up question. Travel Jones, good to see you, Travel Jones. And I want to say up front, I'm very happy and thankful for your kind words, Travel Jones. So thankful for your kind words. Hey, I just finished ham hunting just now. It's been a long day. Thank you for the help. You hear me from me soon. I think I know what you're talking about, Travel Jones. I just got notice, right? But of course I cannot address over here. But I'm very excited for you. All right, that's what I have here to say. I'm very excited for your journey, Travel Jones. Thank you for sharing. Alexander Sheffer, thanks for your answer. Could you post a link to the Remax office? I may have missed if you did. Yes, Alexander. Is a real quick ad here, and at the end of the ad, like we have the contact information. All right. So I'm gonna share right now. You can contact them via WhatsApp. As you probably know, Alexander, from your wife, right? I'm sure she can tell you the same thing. Like WhatsApp in Brazil is the number one mean of communication, right? Like people basically nobody calls anybody anymore. People don't communicate through a text message. People do not communicate through Facebook Messenger. People do not communicate via Telegram. The only way people communicate in Brazil, 99.9% of the time, is going to be through WhatsApp, right? So that's why you have, the phone number here. That's for Nomad States WhatsApp, and it's 11. That's the area code for São Paulo, even though they're based in Rio de Janeiro. And the phone number is 953432424. And you also have like the email naturally, right? Like when you need to share, like more thorough information, when you need to share, titles, documents, receive listings, and so on. So then you also have the email address as well. All right. Ari, muito obrigado, Luciano. Obrigado, Ari. Good to see you. Good to see you enjoying Brazil, right? I really like when we have clients, right? Like, Ari maybe can tell you guys, how long it is the journey to become, like a proper, right? Like, a proper owner of real estate in Brazil, to secure, the real estate investor visa. But what I really love to see is that after all this work, after all this work, from our clients, and of course, mostly our team, that they are taking advantage. They're taking advantage of what they got. So that's why I really like to see you, Ari. And every time we talk, every time we see Ari here at the chat, Ari is having a blast somewhere, right, Ari? You're just like visiting different locations, living the dream. Good for you, Ari. Really, really happy. Donna Lee, hello to all. Good to see you, Donna. Always good to hear from Donna. Pedro, muito obrigado. This is a masterclass, the best information live online. We need more likes. Thank you, Pedro. Yes, if you are enjoying our live stream, don't forget to click that like button. Follow us for more tips. And whenever you like our content, you help our business and you help other people just like you to find our content. Much appreciated, Pedro. All right, so just a heads up, we have a few minutes left. Our next live stream is going to be on Wednesday, right? It's going to be on Wednesday, right? It's going to be on Wednesday, the 17th. On Wednesdays, we meet a little bit earlier in the day. We meet at 12:30 Rio de Janeiro time, right? So don't forget to join us. Like if you have any open topics, to join us on Wednesday. And let me see if we have any final participations or questions to address. All right, this one is from our backlog. All right, I want to know if you can also help like in the inner side of Amazonas, or if you just help with Rio de Janeiro and other major cities. No, we actually help, and that's the same thing for us as a law firm or the Nomad States as the real estate agency. We actually operate across Brazil, and nowadays we are actually able to assist with like the complete due diligence and the entire process of acquisition going to the closing, right, the final stages, anywhere in Brazil. Okay, nowadays under the a mandate of the CNJ, right, Conselho Nacional de Justiça, or the National Council of Justice of Brazil, every registry, they need to conduct their closings, or validations, or title recordings in a digital format. So nowadays we have access. For instance, if you're going to have a closing, we can have access to the title, to the deed of sale, to the title of the property, and pretty much everything else remotely. It does not matter where the property is located, right? So therefore, yes, we can assist pretty much anywhere in Brazil. And if there is an exception, just naturally, we would tell you, listen, we cannot assist for that particular, location. But that's extremely rare. I would say, out of 100 transactions that we assist with, maybe 2 or 3 are going to be locations that we are not really comfortable to help you with. But, like that's an exception for sure. All right, Matt Gaines, thanks, Luciano. Adrian and I will schedule a second consult to discuss marriage versus retirement visa. Yes, Matt, and you're going to be welcome, all right? And yes, I mean, we're going to be very happy to assist you in this journey. And just keep the questions coming. Naturally, we are super happy whenever someone schedules a consultation with us. But remember, there is no limit on how many participations you can have here at the channel. You are always welcome to come here and ask questions and advance your knowledge of Brazilian immigration. I know it's a lot. So many times when you are acquiring such knowledge over the course of several weeks, it helps you, absorb all the knowledge. Okay, whenever we have like a consultation, it's something more like, condensated. And again, feel free to schedule as many as you need, but keep coming to the live stream that I'm sure you and Adrian, you're going to learn a lot. All right, so I want to say thank you to all of you who participated today. Very interesting questions. I'm very happy whenever we have a meaningful live stream like we had today. Just like Pedro said, right? It does sound like a masterclass because we are touching different aspects of, real estate and other aspects of a foreign citizen's life in Brazil. So yes, it is very, fulfilling to me as well. All right. Thank you all. Wishing you a blessed rest of your Sunday, and see you again on Wednesday.